IMTT public hearing and the people to. So if you were granted that, so those of you who made is known for the community, those of Cocoa, Becca Hillburn, and the Bayou Brigade, those of you who made the comments and requested that we have this hearing, it's because of our joint efforts that we were granted it. So it will be Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, 6 o'clock p.m. at Albert Gammon Middle School. They're going to play their gymnasium.
That is
Large
people
enough.
show up.
Yes. So we have to get the word out to all of our neighbors, family, and friends to let them know how important it is for us to resist this expansion of IMTT, expansion of their tanks, and really the expansion of more chemicals. Mm-hmm.
Have you did you post the graphic that you made on the Facebook page?
Where's your graphic? This one?
The one that has all the information on it. This one.
Is it on Facebook, Josh? Not
Click if y'all could post it to Facebook, I will share it a lot.
Okay. We'll make sure that we do that after the meeting.
Thank you.
I wanted to make sure that we waited to make that announcement because we didn't want people to choose. Okay, we won't go to the meeting tonight because we'll go to the hearing. I understand want people to come out to hear what Dr. Kimberly Terrell has to share and wanted to make a big announcement tonight.
Understandable. Is Tulane Law Clinic over there?
Tulane Environmental Law Clinic, they may have representation. I know Attorney Clara will not be able to make it because she had another engagement. One of the students may be able to represent, but they will have some information to share with us. Refined Community Empowerment based here in St. Rose, St. Charles Parish, which is a part of Cancer Alley, unfortunately. And we're making the announcement that we have a public hearing coming up. So LDEQ has granted us a public hearing. So this is on the proposed additional tanks and proposed additional pollution that they'd like to emit. So join us to protect the air, health, and future of St. Rose. We need everyone to show up and make our voices heard. So make sure that you get a flyer, you take a picture, you send it off to all of your family, your friends, your neighbors, because it's very important that we let LGEQ and all of those who are responsible for welcoming IMTT to encroach upon our community to let them know that it's not okay and that they're not welcome to continue really poisoning us and our community. So that's going to be Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, 6 o'clock p.m. at Albert Cameron Middle School. So you have enough space to get you and your family and friends in there. All right. I'd like to share a little bit, Dashki, to share about fire. If you have any teenagers, ages 14 to 18, who are interested in leadership training, we welcome them and you as well, because this is fire. Families involved in respect and empowerment. Okay? Families involved in respect and empowerment. So you will find it here. Small letters, but the sheet that you have there going to give you more about the programs, what your youth and your family would gain from being participants in fire. Families involved in respect and empowerment, what you do and how you'll be supported, as well as the expectations and our monthly things and some fun things that we're going to be doing with our youth here in St. Charles Parish and even beyond. If they have transportation to get to us, we'll be happy to have them. All right, so Dr. Kimberly Terrell is here. Dr. Kimberly, we're going to allow you to introduce yourself. All right. Now give her a hand, please. We know Dr. Kimmy Terrell. All right. So as she take her time, do we have anyone in here who missed our last meeting? Okay. It's okay. So we're going to have a little bit more information about what we talked about last year that we could be able to take along with you. And if not, if too many environmental law clinic, you don't make it with the information, we'll get that to you through email. So if you don't have the email, please make sure that you give us your email and your telephone information as well. Should sign up for us. And there's a little more to spot.
Oh, got it. Can everybody hear me all right? There's some people that may think. I'm super happy to be here tonight. Thank you so much for having me. I want to talk about some of the big picture issues with IMTT's permit application. I've only gone through the first 400 pages, so there may be more, but instantly there's a few things that jump out to me. One is that they're proposing to increase the toxicity of their permitted emissions, and I'm going to talk more about that in just a second. We know they're also trying to create new infrastructure to start storing ammonia, and that's related to the St. Charles Clean Fuels project. And then lastly, they're doing some kind of trickery where they're saying we want to build 26 new tanks, and already got permission, so it doesn't really matter. So this kind of wave us through on that. One big issue is that I have not seen a site map showing the locations of these tanks, right? Like, we don't know if they're right on the fence line. We don't know if they're in the middle of the facility. And we don't know for sure whether they're brand spanking new or whether they're replacements of aging existing tanks. But I have some clues that I'll dive into. Altogether, these 26 tanks have a capacity of about 80 million gallons. And so roughly that would be about a 12% increase in IMTT's capacity. So it's significant, right? We're not talking about just a handful of tiny tanks. But I want to start by, I don't know if anyone's seen the public notice about this hearing, but if I was just looking at the public notice, I would think that this is what I like to call a nothing burger, right? I'd be like, oh, the numbers, the emission numbers before and after are pretty similar, and actually some things decrease. So maybe it's nothing to be concerned about. However, so I want to focus on the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds, because that's what y'all smell. Like when it's really stinky in the air, you're getting VOCs. VOCs are a big class of compounds. And so the permit limit right now is for about 1,400 tons per year of VOCs. And that's pretty huge. Like, for a frame of reference, a facility is considered a major emitter of VOCs if they emit more than 100 tons per year, right? So we're talking about like 14 major source equivalents. So the new permit would actually decrease that number. So on the surface, that might seem like a good thing. But the problem is that when we look at the toxic ones, like the ones that are going to cause the most health problems, there's actually an increase in the proposed toxic VOCs. And they'll tell you that in the public notice. You gotta, I think it's on page 356 of the 400 pages of permit material, right? So you really got to dig it. And so if we think about the pollutants that are the worst offenders from IMTT, the things that are the most toxic, that are the most likely to cause cancer or respiratory problems, there's 4 top offenders. Those are benzene, formaldehyde, PAHs, which are called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and naphthalene. Basically, this is the stuff in petroleum products that makes it cancer causing. And in all 4 cases, the new permit would increase the allowable emissions of these 4 pollutants. So these are the things that are really increasing the toxicity overall. And it's not a massive increase, but it's a 7% increase in toxicity for a facility that's already causing problems, from what I received. The other thing that is important to know is that these are the allowable limits, right? That's how much they're allowed to emit. According to IMTT, they emit way less. So they only report emitting about 200 tons per year of VOCs. And so that means that it could get a lot worse and still be legal, right? Like they could emit about 7 times more pollution than what they're currently emitting, and the state wouldn't have any problem with that because that's what they're already allowed to be. So I'll come back to that more, but I want to ask if anyone has seen this graphic before. This is from IMTT, like straight off of their PR machine, right? Okay. So you might look at it, and I don't know if y'all in the back can read, but it says, oh, the product stored 46% vegetable oils, right? So you might look at it and be like, oh, well, they're not so bad. They don't really store much toxic stuff. When I looked at it, I was like, there's no way, right? Like, I know this facility enough to know that I don't believe these numbers. And I think the way they got these numbers is they just counted tanks and they didn't account for the different sizes of the tanks, right? Like, if you've seen the facility, if you've looked at it from like satellite image, there's giant tanks and tiny tanks and everything in between. So, the more relevant way to think about it is in the volume, right? Like, of all the volume of stuff at that facility, how much of it is toxic? And so if we crunch the numbers by volume, which again, about 60% of what they store is petroleum-based products, right? So that's not only toxic, but also flammable. The next most common thing is vegetable oils, followed by alcohols, right? Alcohols are still toxic and they're also flammable. Like if I was living next to a giant industrial tank of alcohol, my main concern would be fire explosions, right? So this is significant. And I'm also happy to share these slides. I can send them to Kimbrelle if anybody wants them. So this is my response to IMTT's PR machine. But so through figuring this out, I went into a deep dive to try to understand what are they storing where at this facility, right? Like what exactly is in the tanks along the fence line of Elkinsville versus the fence line of Oakland Ridge? And so I created this site plan. And so everything, so this is like a satellite map of the area, right? So you can see the homes of Elkinsville, you can see the homes of Oakland Ridge. All the tanks that are in orange store petroleum products. The tanks in blue store non-toxic products. White is alcohols, and gray is either unknown or other toxic stuff. The site plan that I was working from, provided by IMTT, was really low resolution. So it's hard to read the tank numbers on the really tiny tanks, and it's hard to know what they're storing. But just looking at it, you can say, okay, this is mostly a petroleum product storage system, right? That's what they have there. And one thing that this might be a little cynical, but one thing that I noticed was, this is where their office is and like that, they have like a sculpture garden and all that interesting stuff. So it kind of seems like they've surrounded their offices with the non-toxic stuff, right? And when they expanded in 2009, they expanded westward towards Oakland Ridge, right? And that was all petroleum products as part of that expansion. And then just a couple years later, they also expanded to the north and built these new large petroleum tanks. And the way that I know this is just from looking at Google Earth historic imagery, right? I don't know if anyone's used Google Earth. It's a free open source thing. And the cool thing is that it allows you to go back in time and you can see the construction of this facility over the decades. So trying to figure out, like, okay, where are they going to fit 26 new tanks in this footprint? So, like I said, they didn't provide any kind of site plan or map on where these tanks are going to go, but all of these tanks are numbered. And in general, they're consistent with the numbering, right? So, like tank 105 is probably next to tank 104. So, we can kind of get some clues about what might be going on. So, they have, so this is like a zoomed in version, right? So this is the southwest corner of IMTT by the river, and Oak Lawn Ridge is here. And so they have 3 tanks that are labeled 113, 114, 115. And okay, well, tank 116 is right here. And there's like some open space here. So we don't know exactly where these tanks are going to go, but we know that they're not currently in the inventory, which tells me that they don't exist already. They're probably not replacements or something. And if the numbering continues, it would make sense that they would go in this open area. And then we have a couple other sets of tanks also. So all in this area, there's a couple tanks starting 605 going to 609, and 125 to 128. All of these are not in the inventory. And I've included these yellow circles. Let's try to give you a sense of how big these tanks are compared to what's there already, right? So when you drive by, like just before you get to Oak Lawn Ridge, you see tanks that have probably about a 4 or 5 million gallon capacity. And that's pretty similar to what they're proposing to build, which I suspect will go in this area, but we don't know for sure. But there's also some stuff happening on the Elkinsville side. So on Elkinsville side, I don't know for sure where it is, right? But they're proposing to build 15, 3, 6, 9, 11 small tanks that would each store about a million gallons. And so, again, based on the numbering, I'm kind of guessing that it would go close to these existing tiny tanks on the Elkinsville side. And these tanks are currently in the inventory, but there's no products listed as being stored in them, which makes me think that maybe they're out of service. Maybe they're old tanks that are being, maybe being replaced in this instance. But then we also have kind of the third group of tanks starts with the letter N. And the only place where you see that on the site plan is in the very north part of the facility, right? So Elkinsville is here. The old refinery that used to operate is here. And then there's some pretty large, 8.5 million gallon tanks on that north end. So again, if the numbering is consistent, I'm expecting that they're trying to build those tanks in this vacant area on the north side of the property. And I'm kind of emphasizing all of this because I think most of you probably know that St. Charles Parish has that 2,000-foot setback requirement, right? There's almost nowhere on IMTT's property that's 2,000 feet from the nearest house. So, all of these tanks would be within 2,000 feet of a home. And if, if it were my community, I would be thinking about engaging with my parish officials and asking them, how on earth is this allowable given the setback, right? Like, yes, at one point in history, IMTT got approval to build these tanks. How long does that approval last? And at what point do we acknowledge that there's a reason for that 2,000-foot set, right? Like, this community is the exact reason why you need to have a setback, right? Because there's homes, there's people who may not have cars, who may not, who may be elderly, who may not be able to escape easily. And then there's also one last tank that's on the inventory that they're proposing. So if it were my community, I think like what I would argue for is that the permit require continuous fence line monitoring for everything that is toxic or odor causing that IMTT is allowed to emit, right? So permits can require monitoring, and it can be, facility specific. It can be specific to the concerns and the issues of the PA. So that is absolutely a reasonable thing to ask for or to demand. The permit should also show that IMTT isn't going to contribute to nuisance odors, right? The burden should be on IMTT to do the modeling and do the science and show that all of their emissions will be below the odor thresholds. And when I say nuisance, I don't mean to downplay the concerns, but it's when you engage with DEQ, it can be helpful to talk about health impacts and a nuisance separately from that, right? The idea being that even if it doesn't cause you health problems, nobody wants to smell rotten eggs or ammonia or stinky stuff in their neighborhoods. And then, of course, the health problems are the big concern, right? So the permit should also show that IMTT will not contribute to a violation of any air standard. And we know from work that the clinic did that there's at least 2 newer standards that IMTT has never showed compliance with. The other thing I want to emphasize is, remember I said that they're allowed to emit way more than they report emitting, right? So this is the time to correct that. Now is the time to say, hey, your limits should be realistic. They should be closer to what you say you do, because otherwise, next year, things could get way, way, way drastically worse, and there's no recourse for that, right? Like, there's no reason for them to have that much buffer in their permit. And then the very last thing I want to say is really emphasizing that, even though it's a parish ordinance and it's not DEQ's rule, I would hammer home this concern about the 2,000-foot setback. And I think it's, at the same time, it makes sense to put the pressure on the parish officials and say, hey, how can you guys allow this? This isn't consistent with what the ordinance was intended for. It was intended to protect people from this very type of development. So that's everything I have. Thank y'all for your attention.
Is it all report out to questions and answers? Q&A?
One of the things that we talked about was the tank, right? Right against the fence line, you was talking about a tank. She didn't know what it was. Well, they had a company that was building those tanks. They stopped building them because they went bankrupt. The tanks is there, but it's a big old hole cut in the bottom of it. They are waiting to get money to start that back up again. But as of now, those tanks are empty and waiting to get money to restart the construction of those tanks that you talked about.
Are you talking about like the little metal installations?
That's correct. Yes, it's about several tanks that's sitting there, and they're not big tanks, they're small tanks. And that's what those are. I had a chance to look at them first. One of the things that, as I listen to you and put things together because we've been going to some CAP meetings. Well, their CAP meetings don't quite match what you say. Or should I say, their CAP meetings leave out a lot of what you're saying, but some of what you're saying. So there's still a lot that he's not telling. It's almost like when you little child, and been wanting to be friends with the kid across the street. You may not like it, but you want to be friends with it because you have to deal with him every day. And that reminds me of, I think, of what's going on with there. But I haven't figured out yet with the CAP and I'm going to continue going because I like to know as much as possible. They have a chance to tour that whole place, the whole entire place. And Dark Records, a lot of things. It's a lot of things. The same that they tell, and that you wasn't part of a construction type environment, you really wouldn't know what they were saying. But yes, you are right. You've got a lot of chemicals that's very highly flammable up there. But they use the big tanks. They might use the big tanks, but the small tanks, there's very few. But the big tanks, they got some huge things. So, and they gave us that diagram that you showed. They showed us that diagram. Well, your diagram tells the different story. As you tell the better story. But I just want you to know that we go to the Catholic simply because we need to know what they talking about or what they tragedy took across the city. They showed us what's going on over there with Doc and all that. I'm used to all that what they were showing, but they got a big plan, boy, just a big plan, and they ain't going showing us all this just to show it to us. They're trying to get ready for something, and they using as many of the peoples in the neighborhood to suffice doing it and approving it. Coming back to tell us, oh, well, they're not polluting. We talked about vents and we just went through a whole bunch of things. But to make a long story short, that was a very good interview on that, on the tanks and IMTT itself. And it helps to put together some of the stuff that they're doing. So when they talking, you can also understand better what they're saying is not what actually got. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree. It's like we're all detectives together and IMTT gives information, but it's more of like a clue as opposed to straightforward information. And what you said about them already constructing with small tanks, that makes sense because those are the only ones that are in the current inventory all grade. So they're like already accounted for. So it kind of makes sense. There's, whatever the history was, there's some construction there already. So I love being able to piece together like what I find online, what you see in front of you. And yeah, glad that there are eyes and ears paying attention for you.
Sorry, Joseph Coco Destrana. So I thought what you were saying about these tanks next to Alpinsville. Sorry, to continue talking about the tanks, but was interesting. We've heard people say that they've witnessed some activity going on in terms of them working on the tanks, and ITT is insisting that that's just general repairs and that it's not violating that 2,000-foot rule because it's not a substantive change or whatever the legal sense is that is codified in the law that says what they can and can't do in terms of new construction regarding the 2,000-foot rule. So I imagined if they do want to try to build these 26 tanks that they, have supposedly gotten approved in previous permits, I assume they have. But do you look at the previous permits and saw that?
I have gone back
I do.
on the list.
They probably have been improved. That's seriously active. Just why about that. But I can imagine, given this 2,000-foot back-off law that ITT is partially grandfathered into, that they would probably try to start with those smaller tanks, the gray ones that you said were already in inventory that are partially built, because I imagine they can make an argument for, well, these tanks are here, so this isn't new construction, so we don't have to abide by this 2,000-foot rule, and then just try to piggyback off of that and continue with more construction if that's what they want. So at what point, like, I don't know how familiar you are with the St. Charles Parish 2,000 foot back off law, but at what point do, does do citizens intervene and say, no, you are now violating this law, or do you just start doing it immediately anytime there seems to be any, like, if they start trying to upgrade these tanks or whatever they're going to do, each of them, the ones that are currently in inventory? Sorry, did I make my question clear? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that was good. Yes, I understand. I think the place to start is a public records request, to understand like what parish approvals they have already, and then understand what they would need to do this. Because I mean, for all we know, I do know that you can apply for an exception to that 2,000 foot setback, right? So for all we know, they applied and gotten its section, and everything is totally, by the book. Or maybe they haven't and they're just assuming that they will get it. So I think like some more information gathering, figuring out why they think they can build these tanks, and then consulting with an attorney to figure out, okay, is there a legal hook? Like, is there a legal argument to be made that they are violating the parish ordinance and shouldn't be able to build these? So yeah, we can follow up. I don't know. I'm happy to help try to make that public records request happen. I know y'all are already connected with lawyers at the clinic. I don't know. We can talk about that. What's the best topic to see that?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Terrell, on a very informative presentation.
Well, there's the Janet.
She these the guy from the break those these.
Good evening, and I get from I'm Tyrone Taylor. Born at 4341 First Street, St. Bors. Grew up in St. Bors. Used to walk through the IMTT veranda. Y'all get those 3 tanks with yellow tanks. I live at Brewell also at the extreme northeast side. Yes, ma'am. Friends, those tanks are new. And they were built in the last year and a half. Might have stopped on about 6 months ago. They're way within 2,000. But if IMTT went through a process to get a variance, real variance is a variance. Anytime in this residential area, if you want to build closer to the property line than that the law allows, the neighbors, you have to let the neighbors, sign is put out the neighbors door that you intend to build closer to the property line. Nobody back here will verify it. There's IMTT got a balance for those tanks. If they're proud to say that those tanks are grandfathered in, they're like, that's what's constructed. And everybody that lives behind it knows this. Can I ask how old this year is?
How old was this?
Yes.
You guys can kind of right. I think this was March 2025. The satellite unit was on Google. But maybe we're thinking the same thing. What I can do is I can go back and look at the historical images and try to understand when those tanks, because I did that sort of quickly, but there's 230 some tanks. And if you don't know what you're looking for. So I'll go back and look and see if there's satellite evidence that they're new. I also know just from looking at the permitted stuff that sometimes what they do is it's change tanks from being a floating roof to a fixed roof or vice versa. And that may require like some construction and modification. But looking at the satellite imagery will show for sure if these tanks were on the ground a couple of years ago.
Yes, ma'am. You look at an image 10, 20 years ago, those tanks were at scan you front.
I'll take a look at that for sure. And I'll love with Kimbrelle. And Kimberly, I need to be a point of contact for, whatever I find, I'll share with you and maybe you can share with back. Thank you, sir.
Something else I think we need to pay close attention. Tyrone and I had a brief conversation about it. That was a corner lot that had been sitting, rolled up from, oh Lord, I say, since the last native stone. So the parent never cut it, couldn't get them to move. The trailer couldn't get them to cut the grass, so finally they supposed to have an expert who it belongs to. And guess who name come up on that piece of property?
Hey.
That's right.
Where is it relative to Jar's?
On First and Short.
Those are like,
You have First Street on there?
I think first, so this would be third, second, first, right?
First is Short.
it's the bullshit. Well, this is first way it. Oh, yeah. Oh, where it did.
Jesus.
And it should be down, blue.
Yeah.
Was up? No.
This is the church. This will be fair.
Go to the top. It should be Short up in there.
Oh, the shoulder sign, the old shoulder sign. That's place short. That's a. And I don't see the cemetery, but it will be near the cemetery. Some over here, yeah.
Now, through my understanding, and I don't want to, I don't want to say this definitely, but I was told that another individual was also offered to buy a piece of property in the back, Pontchartrain, and IMTT offered to buy their what they call undeveloped property. And they going and buying individual, maybe about 1/7 or 1/8 or however. And they going in to buy, they put their feet in. Once they get their feet in it, then they can pretty much buy everybody else on. No. All take it from one or the other. So there's something that I don't know how many people they have asked about this, but it's something that needs to be looked at. That's me. Thank you.
So, Kimbrelle, Eugene, Trey. The buffer between IMTT and the communities. Their grandfather and IMTT's grandfather and Atlanta Parish to be within 2,000 feet. All right. How close are the closest tanks to the communities?
These stakes are about 250, 300. So like 1/10 of what the buffer was intended.
Not close.
About 250 feet. For the closest tank to the closest tank.
So then that means that they are not. That they're not adhering to that buffer. If the buffer is 1,000 feet, 2,000. If the buffer is 2,000 feet, and the closest tank is about 250 feet away from the homes, we're not about it. That's I don't know if that will be against the law, but it's definitely they're not permitted to do that.
Not even hours. So, like you said, they would say that their grandfather did. And I guess my response would be, well, what's the point of that rule? No, right? Like, what's the spirit of that rule? Why was that rule created? Why doesn't it apply here? You know, and it's, why don't, okay, things exist, fine. Why isn't it all vegetable oil all around the perimeter, right? Like, there's ways that they could work within their existing infrastructure and still do business and protect people from harm and carry out that spirit of that 2000 with setback.
Well, Denise Elber Holding. Where on that map is 2,000 feet from the first non-IMTT property to the east of that?
Can you repeat that question?
Where does 2,000 feet fall on their property? That we give a 2,000-foot buffer between them and the first property that's not IMTT.
That's a very good question where I should have a scale bar on that. So your agenda not being super sciencey, you got a general idea, but I do have the general idea, right? So if we know that these tanks are about 250 or 300 feet from the closest home,
Where we to about first.
so this is about 250 feet. But so, I mean, they like they most of their like if you look at the center point of their facility, it's within 2,000 feet of most places. So if it would be one thing I could do pretty easily that might be helpful is to just like create a map with a 2,000-foot buffer that like follows the contour of the tanks, right? And then we could look at it and say, okay, these addresses are within 2,000 feet. I mean, maybe that would be a useful community organizing tool. If you could knock on doors and say, hey, did you know you live within 2,000 feet of this facility? And if this facility was built today, that would be illegal, right? So yeah, not just that, but looking at what's in that 2,000 feet, what kind of materials are being stored, and what is the plant's capacity in case there's a fire and explosion as far as their fire department is concerned. What is their capacity in dealing with that if there's a gas leak? 200 feet away from a property, if it's carbon dioxide, that's pretty fast. Right? I mean, that was volatile oil, but there's
The 66 deal.
I agree that visual would probably be very helpful because there's a lot of people who have difficulty visualizing things. So seeing that makes it so much more apparent and also makes it so much more obvious at the wrongdoing that's going on here, how this community is being treated very poorly by a good neighbor. Well, also, when you think about that last accident that happened across the lake, and the people that had petroleum products in their center propped in the rocks, and how far away were they when that happened? You're not just talking about property, you're talking about life, you're talking about. And they're not concerned about losing them now because they just keep going. Because that attitude, and we saw this last week when we went to a meeting about energy, is that, well, it's never happened yet. So it's probably not going to happen. But all it takes is one time.
Well, it hasn't happened to them, but it's happened in other instances. Especially
Facilities happen.
especially in instances where they've got old infrastructure, like the Phillips 66 thing, where their pipes were incredibly outdated, and all it took was them sending in a pig, which is a oil field cleaning thing. It got stuck and it blew up. And I remember I was in my petrochemical classes at Nichols when that happened, and they closed off 90. They closed off Old Spanish Trail. In the radius that they're supposed to have, there are multiple homes. So it was bad.
You're saying there was no escape route after that, right?
Well,
No, was it? There wasn't
there was wasteland,
unless you went
because
River Road.
yeah, because you had Old Spanish Trail and you had houses that would have been stuck, houses on the other side of the track, and
And that was in parity, between parity and DeSaltes.
yeah, and that's how half of the infrastructure is with these plants here. It's that we don't need to fix that. That's like what happened across the lake. The tank was outdated. It was compromised in multiple ways. It wasn't safe. We don't need something like that happening. In a lot of those small facilities, they can say, "Oh, we're storing one thing," but they don't have to actually expose what they could be storing. They could say, "Oh, I'm storing vegetable oil," but they could actually be storing something like dioxin, which is Agent Orange, which my uncle Chris had to deal with moving that. So they don't actually have to tell you what's in them. They just have to tell you either the level of danger or they just don't have to. It's none of your business.
And to your point, I know Kimbrelle asked directly, nice to IMTT directly for a list of what they're storing. What did they tell you? It's confidential business information, and we wouldn't want our competitors to get it. What's interesting is there is a place within DEQ where I have found inventories, and it's a little bit buried, and it's not in the air department, which I think is why I'm able to find it. So I am able to piece together some information, but even still, that's subject to change at any time. And they talk about vegetable oil like it's nothing. It's still flammable.
And there are variations of it,
Exactly.
like it has biodiesel and stuff. So, and on our side of the river, where
Do the same.
yeah, except they want to build a warehouse to put drums, and again, in that kind of warehouse, they don't have to tell you what they're storing in those things. So there could be a varied amount of different toxic and explosive chemicals.
So they're going to put the warehouse in the safe, the 500.
Yeah, right next to people's houses. And I remember there was an uproar because they only knocked on a couple of people's doors there, and that's by Rex Street. They don't knock on a couple of people's doors. That's like one or two pamphlets. Or
They had the post office deliver the paperwork,
but they didn't deliver it.
and the postal person didn't even deliver it to all the houses, so they
That-
didn't even know. I mean, whatever happens here, that's going to happen across the river.
And that's how our
They-
parish works.
Here, it's a dumb deal.
That's how our parish works.
They're just waiting for this to go through.
That's how our parish works. If they could get away with something really quick and shady, and a company puts enough, I'm not saying this is true, but if a company puts enough funding into something like baseball fields, we got, like, I make a joke about that all the time. I think we got more than 50. Yeah. But they could just say they get a small donation and they'll let them in. Some of these plants don't even have to pay taxes.
It's nuts, yeah. And I think one thing that y'all do have going for you is you have 3 different community groups, right? Y'all got Elkinsville, you got Oaklawn Ridge, and you got the community across the river. And I know that people showed up in full force for the last public hearing, right? Like, y'all shut down the last public hearing because you showed up in. I know there's a reporter from the Advocate who's interested in coming out to the October 21st hearing. So, I'm hopeful that the story is like, hey, all these people from different walks of life, from different backgrounds, came out together to speak with one voice and to say this facility is a problem and we're not going to tolerate it to expand when it can't even contain the emissions of that.
We actually have a problem with the media in this parish, though, because there has been media coverage of several of these things, and they tend to paint the community in a very like, yeah, that's one of the reasons we record these things. It's not so is they never buy label my sister.
What did they get people you like? She's honest.
Anyway, what I'm saying though is media coverage is not a unilateral good because they have the platform to make these kind of events look worse than they were. So people providing pushback to that representation, to being maligned as like a riot or a crowd, which they've done at these events, that's really important because there's going to be community members who didn't attend those events who are very likely to believe those lies who might be in support of shutting this down, but if they read that, oh, it was a disorganized riot, they're not going to want to help. So providing pushback and having footage, and I encourage you guys, if you guys go to these things, and please go to these things, if you want to record it, please do record it, because the more evidence of how this actually went down, I think the better.
Oh, wait, that's like lowercase or if our side's a British officials, but all of us to apologize and to make a new way. Use the mic. Oh, sorry, please. Our parish official on our side, I remember it was at like what, a parish council meeting. She blatantly told us you have to apologize to these people because they were being so gracious coming to see y'all.
That Devin, that was at the RK Smith.
The microphone a couple of times, and they had this air dryer in the bathroom that just kept going off, so people couldn't hear and people couldn't talk.
Well, not only that, is that the TV studio, so that the TV studio sent out a camera person, and they finished halfway, not even halfway out of the thing, and according to them, that was the whole thing.
So I think like you made a really good point about engaging with media that you trust, right? As opposed to media that's going to spin something and be counterproductive. I will say that the DDQ hearing where everybody showed up and it had to be shut down, there were at least 3 journalists in the room. And yes, DEQ made a pretty racist statement in the media, right? Like talking about like, oh, we got to ensure the safety of our people, implying that like it's a riot. If there hadn't been good reporters in that room to see with their own eyes what happened, they might have fallen for that, right? Like I think it was so important that it was recorded, like you said, that there were like good, trustworthy journalists in the room. And so I think, my thought is to just be strategic and be smart and reach out to journalists who have done good stories, who are not all about industry bias. And I'm happy to help with that. Like I have a pretty good sense of who to avoid and who to reach out to in the New Orleans ESC.
I'm just going to use this microphone stand up. First, hello everybody. My name is Keaton Peters Jr. I grew up at St. Rose. I actually just came back from film school at Florida State. I undergraduate at Dillard. I just came back from Florida State, and throughout that time at Florida, I've been keeping up with everything that has been going on with the ammonia plant, specifically with the meeting and how it was portrayed, in comparison to coming back home and talking to people who know me, right? Basically, my haircut by Mr. Darius from the age of like 6 to I don't know how old, right? And coming to find out the first person that I met when I wanted to, pursue a story about this is Kimbrelle, which is his sister. And I'm saying this to say, in regards to media, I'm not saying that, I don't know what I'm saying, but what I will say is, I am someone from the community. I grew up here. I have invested interests. So I am looking to do a documentary exactly on this issue. I don't want to speak about, I want people from the communities on both sides of the rivers to speak about, how they feel. Express yourselves, just have the platform, right? Because that's literally what they're banking on. And I told that to Miss Kimbrelle. They're banking on you to be unknown or to not know. And they're also banking on you to not speak up, right? So the collective voice that you just mentioned, that's very powerful. But putting that on a screen in front of millions of people, I think that's even more powerful than just this meeting in and of itself, right? Because I don't think you can, I tell this Kimbrelle this, I don't think you can constantly do the same things and expect different results. You can show up to the meeting 100 times and scream to you blue in the face like my mama say, but that won't change anything. But I think actually showing the people what is going on, both on a legal level, on a human level, on a personal level, I think that can change the course of how this story is perceived, not only on the local level, but on the national and international level. This issue has already been talked about by the United Nations. And it's been talked about, through the Guardian, the New York Times and everything, but there has never been someone who's able to live in this community, right, on a day-to-day basis and walk in the morning at 6 o'clock and smell, the things that you talked about, right? So essentially what I'm saying is I'm trying to cover this story in depth, going back to the beginning. And I would really like, everyone who's invested in this issue to be a part of this journey, because I think this community as a whole, from Elkinsville branching out, I think this is how, you get people to start really paying attention. So that's what I wanted to say. So if you see me, just come speak to me. I'd love to, get to know you all better. And I'm here and we all fighting the same fight. So yeah.
Hey, you should go.
While it's on my mind, we should make sure to try to get you the footage from the DEQ hearing, because there were, I know there was an advocate reporter, but there was also another reporter who was maybe worked for an independent organization that was more community focused, and I bet she would share what she reported. Because it was, how many of y'all were at that DEQ hearing that got shut down?
And we have footage of it too. You do get to send it to you.
Yeah, it would be good too. That was wild. That was, it's powerful.
That's how it goes in this parish sometimes. The people who live here are very passionate, intelligent people. As a riot is so disingenuous.
Yeah. And you're going to be there October 21st reporting? Cool.
You want close? Captain Terrell, environmental scientist.
She's here to answer our questions. Let's take advantage, people. State your name, you in it, please.
Dwayne Ertz, St. Rose, Louisiana. I just want to ask a question. Have anyone spoke to a representative of IMTT of what we're trying to do? Have any representatives spoke to you all, any of the leaders, to find out what we're doing or want to do?
So no, I should know your name is it Burnell? No.
What?
Martian, I'm sorry.
You was there.
I know, yes. But the CAD meetings that he was talking about, that's IMTT's community engagement. And maybe you can say more about that.
The meetings that we go to is IMTT me. It's not a St. Rose community me. So they set the preference. They have certain things that they talk about. They have certain things on a list that they have to have as a conversation, and they do not get in depth in what's going on, what they going to do, what they planning on doing. They don't tell you nothing of that source. They tells you what they want to tell. That's what they do. They don't care to have a bunch of people. They don't want a bunch of people. They want very few. Hold by it. And that's the camp meetings that we met to. They took us all around, showed us all the tanks. And so I know about all the tanks that's is being built, but as this time not completed. We went across the limit and looked at the wall with a low tunnel. We talked about fish. They came up with a new, they did talk to us about, we was complaining about things. Vents, you'll go use. That's what vents are there for. So it came up with a floating top. This top floats inside of the liquid. As the liquid drops, this top drops. So then you have a tank full of in. Now you don't. Because it falls with the liquid. So it's some things that they talk about. They mostly try to explain to us what they are doing to be fellow neighbors. That's what you find for sure. They giving cards out. If you have a problem, if you smell this or you smell that, you can contact this person or contact that person. So it's a lot of things that be trying to do. And I'm quite sure that one of the things that they ask for is other people. Not just the same cap peoples. Well, I'm talking about that. When I say not just the same cap peoples, because everyone in here don't live in my house. You have your own house. So a cap meeting, they allow, say, 4 or 5 people to come. And you may not come to the second or third meeting. But the thing that needs to happen is your name need to be put in for a camp meet, and then you can participate into this meet, a small group where you ask questions, ask all your questions, and get a lot of answers. A lot of answers. Now, all the answers, you won't understand them because you don't have some of the technical knowledge that they're talking about. But there's a lot of things as you go through this scout meet. There's a lot of things that you can learn from it. And one of the things, again, if you have never been in that area there, it's amazing how many tanks they really got in that. You're looking at that map then, and that map suffice the amount of tanks that they have over there. But the people that want to go to a CAP meeting, we'll try to do it once before, ask someone to make an announcement here. If you're interested in going to a CAP meeting, give us a phone number and you can go. I'm not going to keep going. I'm not. Because they talk a lot of stuff. They keep on talking about what they're doing, how they're going to do it, answering your questions and all. But we have a community, and the community need to be there to ask a lot of questions also. Because that's the way things get out to everybody else. Fine having other peoples there. So I'm just saying that sometimes if we stay in our own little circle, we don't know what goes on our side. It doesn't mean we have to get in the circle and do what everybody else do in that circle. But it's good to get in the circle to see what goes on in the circle.
That man behind you. That man behind you said he talking us. Fine.
Gregory, did you have something to say?
Is it?
Miss Tony?
It's done.
You said that if we wanted to go to a county, all we had to do was give a phone number. Well, couldn't imagine. I'm not all like that. The you always think about that all the time.
Well, let me say this. They have a system set up. And what their intentions are is this. Everyone has someone that they figure gets the word out to other people. And they try to take that person, they're trying to get that person to go around and get people to go to the camp, to come to the camp meet by using their phone numbers, and they'll call and invite them. Well, it's a big task because we asked them, well, won't you all give something, say at the park back there, and invite the neighborhood and explain to them what you like to do, tell them that you would like to have their own numbers, what you're doing with a cap meet. Because I'm not and can't run all over St. Rose to ask people for their phone numbers. I don't know that many people by their phone number, I'm saying. I know a lot of people, but not by their phone number. But the ones that want to go to a camp meet, I'll be glad to give them the number. If you give me your number, I'll give it to them. I'll be glad to do it because we all need to know some of what's going on over there and see it for our eyes with our own eyes. So I don't want y'all to think that I'm in charge and nothing over there. I don't want to be in charge. I don't want to get involved in nothing. I'm over there to see what they have to offer for is explaining IMTT system. So I can better understand some of the things that they doing, not doing, and things when I hear like book the God says it's better, I can better understand it because now I'm hearing it on a different view. So if you like to go to the camp meet, if you would like to go to the camp meet, that ain't what you do. This is my phone number. 504 504 416 8284. Now, I'm gonna, he ain't called me tonight or got me. I told him Kim's meeting was more important than going to the camp meeting. But I will, if you call me, give me that number, I'll give it to them. And the question, some of the questions, not all of some of the questions that you probably want to ask, you probably could get an answer for. But and I think that's what it be best. And if it's something that you not sure, I think Kim will be a person to ask if you going and ask him some questions or you need to know something. Or I think if you get with Kim, she can get a help direct because you would tell you it's a lot that they talk about, and it's a lot to understand. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Other thing I can do is I can give you the phone handler for Tracy Johnson, who's the vice president for environmental health and safety. This is in her email signature, so it's public. It's her office phone. It's 504, wait a minute, 619 2293. 504-619-2293. And that's Tracy Johnson. And she's in charge of environmental health and safety and security for IMTT. If anyone uses email, her email is tracyjohnson@imtt.com. And Tracy is spelled Treci. So tracyjohnson@imtt.com. Also, if anyone wants to reach out to me, my cell phone number is 504-235-6328. It's 504-235-6328. And you can text me, but don't text Tracy because that's an office number for her.
That's the reason.
My name is Kimberly Terrell. Terrell. Or Terrell, prefer.
Sure. Okay. So, I'd like to make something clear that what I've found in the 2.5 years of doing what I'm doing to try to resist more harm to our communities. From the beginning of my, I'll call it a relationship with IMTT was beautiful. Because when I put on social media that IMTT is partnering with a blue ammonia plant, Melanie from IMTT reached out to me in a message and invited me to go to a meeting. And at that meeting, Dr. Kimberly Terrell was with me. I think Larry Rideau with us. Larry Sarabaru, who's our board member now. General Russell Honore was with us. And Erica Zerain, Lucas Zerain was with us. And they told us about this wonderful monitor. I was excited. It's a state-of-the-art monitor that's in Richmond, California. But then now they're telling us that's not the monitor that they're partnering with Louisiana Environmental Action Network to get us. The information that I have gotten from environmental sciences, Dr. Kimberly Terrell, who I reached out through Larry before even interacting with IMTT, or even before knowing about the blue ammonia plant. It was through Dr. Kimberly Terrell who told us that IMTT is partnering with this blue ammonia plant. And what I have found is that there's two different truths. So somebody's truth is a lie. Somebody's truth is blowing smoke. So when you interact with IMTT, you better go prepared because they're very good talkers. They're very intelligent, very knowledgeable. And if you don't hear the other side, you're going to believe what they say. But anytime I hear somebody talking about health and safety and all these things, who's supposed to be protecting me, who's supposed to be protecting my family and my neighbors, my community, and I'm still smelling chemicals in my bedroom, and when I bring it up, the last time I was at IMTT, I have a cousin who was there, Marsha, you was there, Lisa. I need you to speak tonight because we need to know what's what. So Lisa's on the cap. Lisa, I don't want to put you on the spot, but just share a little bit about your experiences last time when we were not meeting together.
Yeah, the last time we were there, Kimbrelle was there. I was still like next to her. She asked them questions that they would not want to answer because she's well knowledge on what's going on. They were very uncomfortable from the moment when they saw her walk in. They weren't. I don't think were very friendly. And I sat right next. They just anytime she asked a question, they offered to talk to her after the meeting was over. They didn't want to talk to her while everything was over, and they wanted to talk to her after it was over. So that they didn't make me want to go to the side to talk to her. Is that correct? I could he on me a little bit of what they were saying because I was one, but they were not very pleasant. They weren't very happy that she was there because she knows what was going on. And I can say that I was very proud that my cousin stood up to them. Oh, I was sorry that I couldn't be there more for her, but she stood up. She asked the tough questions. She did not take their little smoke that they were trying to do, and that made them even more uncomfortable. But she stood her ground. She inspired for St. Goals. She inspired for community. And we all have to get together and encourage our loved ones, neighbors, friends to come out to the meetings. I don't understand why they don't come out. I walk in my neighborhood at 6 o'clock in the morning, and now I see what you're talking about. I had to look at it sinks like 6 o'clock, 6:50, 6:30 in the morning. It's 6. And I live by sheep. So that is our business of help, didn't it? And that's it. For we really had to push one another. We really had to tag team to get people to understand this is serious. Our kids, our grandkids, they're going to suffer from this because the smell is just in an area. If Laura says just one little area in the back. Yeah, once I walk through that, it's gone. So it's really disturbing, and it's trying to, now that I see for myself what's being spelled, because I haven't really misspelled before, and I don't know what's talking about. I see her every morning. So let's try to work together. You might have to put boots on ground and then go door to door. They got to get more attendance at these meetings. So, yes, name. Thank you so much, you.
So that's what we're dealing with. So we have to go with the information that we get from Tulane Environmental Law Clinic. We have to go with the facts that we get from like the Kimberly. And we are on two opposite sides. I had to text one of our little friends who was here at the last meeting, who's credit me. She reached out to me. I saw her at the church, Sable's Community Church. And I worked with her mom and all of these things. About 3 months ago, she texted me, "Where's Kimbrelle? What is this snare I'm stunning in my house?" So I told her what to do. She reported it to LTQ. She texted me last night. She said, "I'm sorry, I won't be able to come to tonight's meeting. I'm celebrating a birthday." And none of me, my friend, reached out from IMTT. She saw my comment at LTQ, and she invited her to a meet tonight. And according to what the young lady said, it's a toxicologist who's going to be speaking on their findings. So I just texted her back and let her know in so many words that in the 2.5 years that I've been doing this work, you have people who are money hungry. It's all about money. Then you have people who are concerned about the health, safety, and welfare of the people. I did not tell her one way or the other. I said, allow Holy Spirit to lead you.
and try to not. And that's what you have to.
So we got a report last time we were at the last CAT meeting about the findings of the monitor.
At least, we're going to talk about that tonight. Teachers and findings and cats. Go.
Okay, and the findings of the toxicology report. They said that there were no chemicals detected in the monitor that Lee went around with in a little car and somewhere they like it. But I'm putting it in language terms. In the little car, they didn't pick up anything except for the natural gas station, the full natural gas station that's next to IMTT. So they're pretty much saying, I asked him, do you emit toxins? They couldn't tell us that you were not. They danced around. Exactly, Casca. So when you party with these people, Coy and being able to say, I'm not going in. Because my welcome, I knew my welcome was worn off. And I'm very, very smiley and trying to make them feel at ease. So they'll ask these questions because they're important to the people who are there. It was Martian Catherine's first time, Rosemary, her first time, a few other people. It was their first time at the VA, so I needed them to know what's what. So you're gonna hear two different sides. LDQ is supposed to be protecting the people. Look at that listen before we go to this here. This is public here. Are you being protected in your house? Are you smell the chemicals in your house? I am. My neighbors are. Are you smelling chemicals when you walk into the park, or when you walking in the neighborhood, or when you driving by in the car? The little children at the bus stop, yes, our babies are smelling. They're standing at the bus stop in the experience. So this is not fun and games. This is not a joke. I don't get supposed as the joke way to see Marsha, especially if you being from the industry. I'm glad you were part of it. You need to bowl. You need to bring this information back to the community. That is their part. So if we go to these meetings, we have to bring that information back to the people. Kim.
One thing I would strongly recommend whenever they tell you anything of CAT meeting, ask for a rate. If they're like, oh, there was a toxicology report, they didn't find anything, cool, can you give that to me in writing? Even if I don't use email, give me a piece of paper so that I can bring this out to the community and ask the scientists to look at it. Because I guarantee you what they did in that toxicology pay is they didn't measure right chemicals, or they didn't use equipment that is sensitive enough. It's really easy. And everybody close your eyes. What do you see? You see nothing, right? There's people everywhere. But if you don't have a tool that will actually allow you to see the pollution, you're not going to see it. So their industry and DDQ, they love to show up with the wrong equipment and measure and say we didn't detect it. But IMTT absolutely, every year IMTT tells DDQ all about the toxics that they emitted. So the fact that they can't even admit that to their neighbors, that they're acting like they mostly store vegetable oil, it's absurd. Sorry, nothing makes me madder than this information.
Thanks, Kim. One more question. Say your name and your community, please.
Yes, Louisiana.
So I'm just wondering, well, what about the buckets, the bucket brigade, or the instruments that they gave you while back? Gave you some instruments to check the environment, to check the air. So what is it that you found?
The Filmmaker first.
So Kimberly was to answer that. So my understanding is that there hasn't been any recent sampling. That when there was sampling kind of back in the day, and there's a list of chemicals that they found that they shared with Kimbrelle, which I think you share with others. And then also there was that DQ miner for a while. So there's DQ never actually came and presented dates, So I'm working on like a deep dive into it to try to see if we can find something useful, especially by October 21st. The challenge is that there's so many different chemicals that come from IMTT. Like they report emitting, I think like 36 different cancer-causing chemicals, and there's no one piece of equipment that will measure all of those things continuously. So you're either picking, a couple chemicals for continuous measurements, or you're taking a can of air or a bucket and sending it to a lab and getting like a snapshot at that moment in time. But of course, the challenge is it might be way worse at 3 in the morning versus when you collected that bucket of air at 7 o'clock at night. So what we're working on with my organization now is basically like an automated bucket system so that the bucket would be collected when it's super smay, even if it's at 2 in the morning, so that it doesn't require a person to be there to do that. But anything we do is still going to be like a partial picture. I am seeker for a state-of-the-art air monitor that tells you exactly everything that's in the air. But that's like a couple $100,000 price. So, sorry, that was a long-winded answer. But to your point, there has been work done before. We do know that those chemicals cross the fence line, absolutely, from that work. But I think there's still value in doing more air monitoring because we only have a partial picture of what's going on.
Okay. I think also, you Dustin, let me answer this question, what this is related to, and then to Medici Orange, please. Also, with that monitor that I use, it's at Sumacast. And so I did collect that and I share the findings with the community several times. But now there's a law. Can you tell them about that law and the restrictions of sharing that data?
Yeah, so I'll try to be brief. There is a law called the Community Air Monitoring Reliability Act, CAMRA, and people refer to it as CAMRA. It was passed about a year ago, and it's insane. It basically holds y'all to a higher standard than IATT or DEQ when it comes to air monitoring. So it says that if you're going to try to use the data for something official, like alleging that IMTT is breaking the law, you have to use gold standard EPA certified equipment. You have to you have to include all these caveats when you send the data. You have to talk about what the limitations were. DEQ speaking to this, right? So there's a lawsuit challenging that law, right? Saying it's unconstitutional. You can't tell people what they have to say. That violates the First Amendment. And it's absolutely insane that you expect community members to show up with a gold standard piece of equipment the size of a refrigerator, especially when you have DEQ showing up with something the size of a cell phone saying, oh no, you don't measure anything, with this little Hopi device. So it's some ways when things are so egregious, I think that can be a good organizing, motivation because that law is so. So I think there is nothing that prevents people from collecting data. We just have to be a little bit careful with sharing data, and not creating any vulnerability. But Kimbrelle, if you do want to share the previous air monitoring information, we can talk to some attorneys and make sure we're doing it in a way that protects.
Okay, because Betsy was found in St. Roch's with both collections, toluene, hexane, heptane. Okay, we can give information about that you have, to show what type of harm those chemicals cause on our bodies. These chemicals that's emitted from IATT, they affect every system in our body. Every system. Reproductive system, neurological, a lot of carcinogens. So neurological, cardiological, it's like they run the whole gamut. So we need to be we need to be, I hate to say afraid, but very concerned. Very concerned. And you have to advocate for yourself. And that's what we do. Refined Community Empire, that we're working and trying to get people to advocate for yourself. Because no one else is doing it. No one else is doing it. No agency is doing it. No industry is doing it. They want money. They want money. And it's money in these chemicals. That's what they see. They see money. So you care about your health and safety of yourself and your family and your community, you had better speak up for yourself. Because they're going to keep going like they grew since 1925 when they first started as city services. It has grown. Now they had them cross up on the communities. It's supposed to have this buffer given by our local government to be with that 2,000 feet and there in 250 feet of the community. We're going to do what you said we need to do, Miss Connie. What I always think about, Miss Connie, we need to go to these council meetings, Miss Connie. Yes, ma'am. I want you to bring me. I want you. We're going to do it together. Yes, ma'am. That's what we're going to do. I'm glad you asked that question. We have 2 more. Lamb, you're going to have the last word. Okay. I'm going to make it quick because we have food, and I have my friend here from Pontchartrain Conservancy who's going to also take a moment to share some information with us. Okay, so
Marshall, just to piggyback on what happened to Kimberly there. At the same time, I brought up about the smell. Well, in that cap beans and had a lady that was only on cap T. She, one of her feet had side Joe Oliver and says that IMTT was pollute that ain't. She can't come out of the house without smelling all kinds of chemicals. At the same got me that we were there. We wasn't talking about the smell. She said, oh, no, they ain't coming from IMTT. That's coming from across the road. And guess who they got a monitor? Well, monitor is put it. Guess what is put it? In Hollywood. Are you thinking about that IMTT put a monitor in my yard? So we just need to be aware of some of the peoples that bring stuff and understand everybody that comes to you. And she cool is not all tiny a good person. So just something to think about.
I did a little research earlier. I went to go that I share about this triple latte. If I share the blue, I like to share fry and then a little bit. To the point where they're not. I don't know if y'all can keep up with like the EPA and the rules, but I think the EPA element has to like regulate or monitor at all. Like it's leading there. So this topic of discussion that we're having, like they're already like stepping on toes. But what lit a fire to me was Rod said James, correct me if I'm wrong, and then during the Biden-Harris administration, they filed a lawsuit where the EPA was going to investigate exactly what we're talking about today, right? Now at the time, I don't know if he was governor at the time, but just later before he was governor, he was attorney general for the state. He filed the county lawsuit that said that the Biden-Harris administration was overreaching states' rights, right? And we all know the importance of that investigation and may handle it too. So that's the first step, right? That investigation concluded with y'all can't procedurally. So whatever would have came up for that investigation, which we already know, isn't in there. It's going with the wind. The next thing that he did was Kimbrelle. She had all laundry devices, right? Then Jeff Lindsay, now as governor, decides I don't like this. I need to protect the economic prosperity of my state. He comes out with the act where you can no longer, citizens can no longer monitor using their own devices. So we don't trying to paint the picture of it's censorship. I don't mean censorship, but yes, science. I don't mean the picture of the spot that did my own research about you. I'm not sure if Mowgli displayed this possible science in her homework. That's why I say they're banking on you not Lori. They're banking on you being quiet. This isn't something that can affect us living kids, the unborn, right? Then I could come on maybe not one hand, but she did the picture, right? That's not enough people. There's not enough people here at all. Benjamin Chavis in 1987 is two things that will be done with. I will try to write this down in your phone, and I will try to search the phone in your old time, because this is the days that I keep up with in my research. And I told this Kimbrelle, this is, you put your eyes on it for 2 seconds, you'll find it out. Write down the name, Benjamin Chavis. In 1987,
Wait, how you spell that last name?
Chavis, Chavis. And I'm glad you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned because it brings up a point. In 1987, Benjamin Chavis did a study where he wanted to find out if the toxic sites across the country in America had anything connected to historically black communities, right? He found in 1987 that there was a direct link between what is now called fence-line communities, which that wasn't even the term at the time, and where these toxic waste sites were. That's the first thing I want to leave you with. This study can be found in Google. The next thing I want to leave you with, going back to the point of, they changed the laws to be 18 devices, and that has already been a publicized study, right? Johns Hopkins University recently did a study using their own mold, they call it the marathon thing, whatever it's called. They have found that it is 200, I think they report like cancer added 6 to 7 times the pollutants. It's actually 200. 200 is an absurd number. I can't even count to 200 without getting tired. So imagine how my body feels breathing 200 growth, the 200 times the amount of woody chili. And to the point where I mentioned that I'm glad to mention, so I think this is a universal fight, right? But I think for the people in this community specifically, we all know how it's started. And like I always said, like people before me always used to say, nobody really cares about it until it's only for this stuff. So it only doesn't need to be us. It needs to be whether you're red, black, brown, purple, blue, green, whatever color you want in the color spectrum. I think everybody needs to be aware of this. It can't just be on people for St. Rose or people for Lulin or people for Kalala, wherever St. Charles Parish. If you have people for Orleans Parish who care enough to come to this meeting, that's another voice that'll listen to you. And right now, we need as many voices as possible. So that's Benjamin Chavis. And if you go on YouTube, you can search the John Hopkins one the ball day. It'll be all ball bug. So that's all with me done.
Okay. We have one more, and then we're going to the two. Okay, it's
My name is Danielle Us. My name is Danielle Thursday. I'm returning to my.
Speak to the mic. Speak to the mic. I want to hear you.
I need to burn our case. And we all gotta do a law that up, have a go, and it works.
Right. Thank you for that. All right. I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself if you come up to the front.
Everybody. My name is Kelsey Fontenot. I'm one of those people who came from Orleans Parish because I came. Originally from Lake Charles, so this is a pattern we see all over the state. So I'm really happy to be in this room
I was here last month and I met some of you. I was with Healthy Golf at the time, but since then I have a new job. I'm with Pontchartrain Conservancy. You may have heard of their plantings and postal restoration. But we started a new project. It's called CITE, another acronym, but it's Communities Investigating Their Environment. So what it is a community science flood monitoring initiative. So we talked a lot about air today, but what I learned last month at this meeting is this also affects your flooding situations as well. I heard somebody mention the Fourth Street pumping station and how it's flooding those yards and cars and everything like that. So we have a 4-year grant with the National Science Foundation, and we're doing community-based flood monitoring in 5 parishes: St. Charles, St. John the Baptist, Orleans, St. Bernard, and Plaquemines. So we're just getting started. So I'm here right now to invite y'all to a community listening session that we have coming out. So we really want to involve y'all in every step of the decision-making process. Like we're talking about monitors today. You'd be able to choose the monitors, choose where they're going to be placed, decide all of those things. The data is yours. The data is publicly available, and it's going to be used to improve our flood maps, improve our flood mitigation plans, and just make this a better place to be. There's a lot of ways you can get involved. One of them is we're hiring sorry if I'm getting you caught up. We're hiring a full-time position. This will be a site steward, 40 hours a week, and you're kind of the community engagement person for St. Charles and St. John the Baptist Parish. So you're running a lot of those community meetings and getting the local people involved. So if you're interested in applying or you know somebody who could be a good fit, please get in contact with me. You know, there's some really amazing, engaged people in this room, so I know y'all know the right person. We also have a community advisory team, similar to, it seems like what IBA's called the same thing that IMTT calls theirs. But basically you would just be representing your parish for its project. So we're looking for 2 more people to join that community advisory team. It's a low time commitment, but big impact. You get stipends for attending the meetings, transportation, food. If we ever have a meeting, childcare is provided. If there's another reason you can't make it to the meeting, let us know, and we'll try to help you out and get you there. We really want everybody to be able to participate. We're going to be training flood monitors in the parish as well. They'll get stipends. Ask the opportunity for maybe you or anybody to get involved. You could just follow our newsletter and take the surveys and have your input heard that way. So you can really participate at any level. But workforce, full-time, or you could just follow us, answer the surveys, and leave your feedback that way. So I'll be hanging around. If you have any questions, I have flyers, I have sign-up sheets, I got all done. Any questions right now? Oh, I love that. And thank you so much for having me.
All right. So I want to encourage you all to get involved. And of course, we have our fire families involved in respect and empowerment. So if you have young people who are teenagers between the ages of 14 and 18, we want them to be a part of our civic leadership. So we're dealing with families, not only the youth will be bringing resources to the entire family. So also see us at the end so you can get more information and give us your information as well. All right. So if that is everything, we have food in the back, refreshments for you. So please get those before you leave. And am I forgetting anything? Larry Sarabaru. He's our board member. Would you like to have some last words? Larry, can you come up, please?
Could I ask you a question real quick about the 21st meeting?
Okay, do you have a question?
Yeah. Some of the ways to see us that we can participate is the email LDEQ. Is this a separate comment period Because the first one was to get this meeting, correct?
Yes, yes. The first one was to get this meeting. So the comment period has been extended. So Dr.
Can you comment again? Yes. So for anyone who didn't get the question was, is there another comment period now that we have meeting? And yes, so when DEQ grants a public hearing, they have to extend the comment period because when you show up at the meeting, you can make comments, right? So they have to also allow written comments to have the same deadline. So if you already submitted something and you're like, hey, I thought another made important issue, you can still submit written comments.
What if you submitted a comment, but you want to air that given that, I mean, are they going to read the comments that were already submitted?
They will not read comments that were submitted at the here. So you'll if you submitted something in writing, you can still get up and you can read what you submitted and you can say something new. They will not answer questions. So it's kind of like you're talking to a brick wall who doesn't care. Well, like a road, so don't expect anything back. It's a one-way street. But part of the value is educating your neighbors, and inspiring your neighbors and just showing force to DEQ that people care and they're engaged.
It's in the air. It's out in the air and other people could hear it. It's been heard. It's all that thought then.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll take it.
Let me see him.
Larry. Can you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. I'm Larry Stropper, Jr. I'm from St. John Parish. I'm a former councilman. I served on the council in St. John Parish for 4 years. In 2015, we had a situation with DuPont Acre in reserve. They were polluting a chemical called chloroprene that attacks the body organs. It's also a cancer-causing agent. But we did organize with a group called Conservancy of St. John Parish, and I am also a member of Kimbrelle's organization. I had no idea those days were that close to the houses. I had no idea. 30 years ago, I ran for state representative and I came through St. Rose. Well, that night, I never saw the dates. I had no idea. But anyhow, and Kimbrelle mentioned to me a situation that they were getting odors. I came and I walked down the street. I said, how could people breathe that she was getting chemicals in her home? I said, well, nobody said anything. But anyhow, my journey has been almost like an unbelievable fantasy of a government that's failing this community and this state and this country. And I'm not going to preach about what else is happening across our country in the United States right now. But I did have opportunity to contact Ms. Kimberly Terrell. We did an application. We filed a complaint to the United Nations. And Ms. Kim Terrell helped us work on that application for almost a year and a half. And I called this lady Christmas morning, I think it was. And I had to apologize to her so much because it was like timing. It was like getting people together, getting people to come to meetings. Anyhow, long I could go on and on. I mean, I almost could write a book about it. It's not a pretty book to write. But if you live in this community and you see and you smell and you understand the illnesses and how it affect your health, please speak up. Ms. Kimbrelle cannot do it by herself. It's organization. Kim Terrell cannot do it by herself. The elected officials in this parish are responsible for your public safety. I was elected official for 4 years, and I served on that council, and guess what? Guess what? It was just who? Just me. No one else supported me. Of course, I was not elected the next term. I could care less. In my small community, we have people that's on the list for heart transplant, kidney transplant. I have a cousin, he lives in Destrehan now. He had a lung transplant from Lucy. I've got 2 cousins in Lucy that's on the list for a heart transplant as we speak. I have AFib heart condition. It hit me about a year ago. I had no idea I had it. It's irregular heartbeat. It shot my heart. It cut into my heart. I feel fine, but That's not just about me, what I feel. Not because those things that affect just me, it's the children that's living in this community. I bet we don't have anybody in this room that's under 50 years old. That's Josh. He did 2. He did 3. The situation is very, very crucial for you to speak up, stand up, be kind, make that phone call your council person, call your state representative, call your state senator, call your congressman. Okay? Call them, send them an email, put them on blast. And I know social media is good for some things, but just put things on blast for social media to promote the negative things. Some people take advantage of that. Don't play with it that way. You send them an email, you send them a registered letter, you call them, tell your preachers, tell your priests, tell your teachers, tell the principals in the schools. Let everybody know. If you know a community or people in your community are suffering, breathing chemicals, nobody's going to come and rescue you. Nobody's going to come and help. Big money. We have a lot of money on Wall Street. These big companies. I spent 36 years in the industry. I never got a bonus at the end of the year. I never. I'm a little bit. Everybody got about 6,000. I got maybe 3,000 because I spoke up about the environmental conditions in my workplace. I spent 36 years in the chemical industry. I'm not going to name the company. I spent 36 years. And guess who? Guess who got the punish work? They hired an EPA contractor to work with EPA to make revisions on the scrubbers. We have scrubbers in our tanks. And guess who they put to work with them? Me. They punished me. I had to climb 10 flights of stairs every hour to catch a sample and come downstairs. And the elevator, the fuses were taken out of the elevator, so I had to climb the stairs. That's okay. I saw the handwriting on the wall. I humbled myself. I made my 36 years, and I promised God if I ever get out of that plant alive, I will speak up and get people engaged in environmental issues that are affecting our communities. When I got called in with LDQ behind closed doors, and it was tell us that fluorocarbon was affecting our community, but they wanted to let the local government know first. I said, well, this is going to be a rough ride. So since 2015, the government, the LDQ, the EPA, all these people are not standing up and doing the things they should be doing. Okay? In St. John Parish, we had 8,000 people took legal action against the plant. They spent $30 million on the thermal oxidizer to reduce the emissions. It only reduced it about 85%, 85%. So time passed, the emission was still furthering, still in the community, and they stood still for a while. Guess what? We didn't have to lift the finger after that. We never had a day in court yet. They decided to pull the plug and shut the plant down. And that was not a beautiful thing for me to speak out about when people lose jobs. Over 500 people lost a job. Contractors and people that work for the facility. But our mission was to let people know, just like everybody came here tonight, you're concerned, you should be concerned. You live here, this is your community, your health is at stake. And we have the technology to make it better. And you got the good, the bad, and the ugly. I told you a lot about the ugly. Yes, the good, they pay good money, got good benefits, or what's the trade-off? Your health or the money. And right now, this whole world is on the rotation of how much money everybody can get. So I know the room's not packed, but you don't have to have 500 people to get things done. And I really do believe there are some legal boundaries that this community should take. I don't think they should ever let up, should never let it rest. But your local government, your state government officials, they are responsible for the public safety no matter what plant's polluted. Stand by that. Stand by your neighbors. Stick together. This Kimbrelle and this organization, refining community, don't have all the answers. But while you're living right now, try to make a difference. So really deal with that. Thank y'all.
But for you, Brigade,
All right. Thank you very much.
Because you've worked on a parish council. Okay, how do we
Right all the time. Yes. I want you to go quickly and ask that question, and then we gotta close.
Okay. You worked on a parish council. How do we talk to our parish I'm not being ugly, I'm just fired up about this. How do we talk to our parish council members? Because most of them don't seem to care.
Well, you want to go to a council meeting for sure. You want to email them. You want to call them. Ask them to put you on the agenda. Or try to go to the parish president. You want to be on the agenda about whatever complaint you might have.
Theoretically, if we do that and it doesn't work, is there any way to hire recourse?
Yes.
If we set point contacting them and we get snowballs or we get ghosted,
Well, you're going to call your state representative also, your state senator. You're going to send them letters. You're going to call them, email them. And most of all, there are legal options you can take. I'm not here to give you legal advice, but right now you need to hit the ball with everything that you can and that you put your hands on.
Thank you so much.
We want to thank Pastor Freddie Dixon and his deacons for allowing us to use this church, the Mount Zion Baptist Church. And I don't see any of them here right now. Would you like to close us out and have